My name is Andrew. I have this channel called The Medellin Buzz. It used to be a blog that was pretty successful a few years ago. And because of the YouTube channel, I was getting a lot of people that wanted help to move down here to Medellin. So I've created this presentation on the essential things you need to know in order to move to Medellin. Moving to Medellin should be for people that have the budget to move to Medellin, because the worst thing that can happen is that you come down here and you love it, and then you're like, man, I need to figure out a way to make money, and then you're taking low-level jobs down here and having a difficult time, and eventually what happens to those people is that they move back, and all they can do is pretty much visit every now and then on vacation. If you've watched my videos, you know that I always preach that $2,000 will allow you to live comfortably. You can do it with less than $2,000 a month. I know people that have lived here with $1,000, but they live in the lower income neighborhoods. Now, I have nothing against that. You know, I mean, I had to do that because I got here after being deported from the United States, and that took like 6 years of my life here, from 2010 to 2016. Do I recommend it? Not really. If you're, over 40, you don't really need to be doing that, hopefully, but to each his own. You can't do it. You want to make sure that when you come down to Colombia, that you've got your banking situation in the United States fine. Whoever your bank is, find out what their international ATM withdrawal fees are. Charles Schwab being the number one that most expats use. I use Mercury. Mercury Bank is a bank for online startup companies. So if you do have an online startup, I highly recommend Mercury because they have zero international wire fees too. Also, another big tip that we always give all of our masterclass students is that before you get down here, make sure that you renew all your cards. Check the expiration date on all your cards, even your debit cards. That way you don't have to do it because, you renew a card and they send it to a mailing address in the United States. But how are you going to get it over to Colombia? You're going to have to wait until someone comes down here and can bring it to you, or you're going to have to use a service that can ship it over to you, and there's going to be fees added to that. So you might as well delay that the most as possible, right? By renewing your bank cards and your IDs and all that stuff. Wire transfer apps, you can use, someone mentioned Revolut, you can use Remitly, you can use Wise, W-I-Z-E, W-I-S-E, sorry. Wise app works really well. Out of all the ones that I've used in the past, I learned that Wise has the lowest transfer fees. So I still use Wise to this day. Another question that we get a lot in the Medellin Masterclass is how to transfer large amount of money. The best option for that would be to open up a brokerage account while you're in the United States. You can, and I'm not talking about a United States brokerage account. I'm talking about a brokerage account in Colombia. Another thing that you can figure out before you come down here is your phone line. And I do recommend that you do have a US phone number because a lot of the time you'll have like those two-factor authentications for banking purposes where they need to send you like a text message. Now, I don't have a US line with like any of the carriers there. I've been using MagicJack for 20 years now. I've had the same MagicJack number, and it's just an app on my phone now. You don't need a device. It's just an app on your phone, and you can receive phone calls and you can make phone calls as long as you've got a stable internet connection. Entering Colombia, make sure you know about CheckMig. So when entering Colombia, more than likely they're going to ask you for an exit flight. You can check sites like Expedia.com to buy like an exit flight that you can just get a refund for. But you're going to have to show that. Immigration, when you get here as well, they'll ask you reason for travel. You want to make sure that you tell them that you're here for tourism, and they won't even care. Once you get down here, you might want to know what neighborhood you want to live in, whether you're going to be doing Airbnb, whether you're going to be going with a local furnished apartment company. Another thing is to maybe rent like a local and getting your own phone number here, which is really easy. We'll go over that here in a second. Let's talk about neighborhoods. The neighborhood always depends on your personality and what you like. For example, I live in El Poblado. I've lived in 7 other different neighborhoods and I like them all, but ultimately I settled in El Poblado in Barrio Manila. Barrio Manila is one of the flat areas in El Poblado. So I've lived in the hills of El Poblado in like a high rise that had like 23 stories and it had an elevator, it had a pool, it had amenities. I didn't like it. I lived in downtown, and that was like one of my favorite places to live in. I love the hustle and the bustle. I like things happening. Now, you might have a different personality, and depending on your personality, there's pretty much a neighborhood for you in Medellin. If you want to be completely immersed because maybe you're learning Spanish, perhaps Manila or the touristy area of El Poblado is not for you. There are other neighborhoods like La Frontera, Santa Maria de los Angeles, that are completely Colombian, and you can immerse yourself, but they're just nicer. Or you can go live in a lower income neighborhood or a lower socioeconomic stratum, like a strato 5 or a 4, in like Laureles. Envigado, I love Envigado. Envigado has some awesome neighborhoods. There are hills there, but there's also a lot of flat area there. And a lot of people do want that, and I completely understand it. For example, if I go to Poland, I want to learn how Polish people live, right? And I want to maybe learn the language, and that's just an example, but I completely get it. So maybe you don't want to be in the touristy area. I just like my lifestyle because I don't want to be away from the tourists. I want to sell to the tourists. I've got my Airbnbs here. I've got the Medellin Masterclass. I want to help people come here, and I want to be in that mix, right? What I always suggest for the first month, just do Airbnb. Pick the neighborhood that you want to live in and get there and do a month Airbnb there. Number one, to make sure that this is the neighborhood that you do want to live in long term, because a lot of the times you live there for a couple weeks or maybe a month and you're like, yeah, I'm not feeling this place at all. So I highly suggest doing like an Airbnb for a month there. And then there's two things that you can do. People that want to stay longer term, when you check them in, you get their WhatsApp, right? And you tell them, hey, I'm looking to stay long term. What kind of discount would you give me if I stay here for 2 or 3 more months in this apartment? And you could get usually 20 to 30% discount. That's what I give, because that's what Airbnb charges me. Local furnished apartment companies do that when you're down here. Don't do that while you're in the United States. Renting like a local, typically this is what you need to rent an apartment. You need a local ID, you need a bank account. If you don't own property in Colombia, then you need a cosigner that does have property in Colombia and or a business that they can hold as collateral. So for like the first 6 years, I had to roommate with people until I met enough people and I did things the hard way. That doesn't mean that you can't rent like a local either. So for example, my parents just moved down here 4 months ago because I had the baby. They came to retire here. They're over 65 now. They've got a pension, so they've got steady money coming in. They were looking for an apartment through an agency and they didn't qualify. So what they did was they started walking around the neighborhood and getting phone numbers from security guards, getting phone numbers from the signs on the windows that weren't associated to like an agency, and calling people. And they got a hold of a guy, an older gentleman. His son has a lawyer that drew up a contract, a rental agreement, and they rented for a year. And a lot of the times that's how business is done here. It's just getting out there and making contacts, calling people, messaging them on WhatsApp, and finding a good deal. It can happen. It just takes some time. Now, if you want to optimize your time, what I would do is find a local that speaks English, go around the city or the neighborhood that you want to live in, and find great deals for you. That's what I would do, because if someone can do that for you, that'll save you a ton of time and eventually a ton of money as well. Once you're down here, if you use an eSIM, you're going to have an unblocked phone that you can have one of the carriers here install the eSIM. So make sure that your phone is unblocked. Staying in Colombia, the fun part, visa options in Colombia. So there are a few visa options in Colombia. I'm not going to go into like super detail, but let's just review them. The digital nomad visa, which a lot of people are getting, and the digital nomad visa is usually for about a year. I heard that if you apply for the digital nomad visa outside of Colombia, the likelihood of getting 2 years is higher. But if you're in Colombia and you apply for the digital nomad visa, usually they only give you a year. Some of the requirements are, how much money you make per month. And I believe it's $800 per month. You have to show that you make at least $800 per month, but it doesn't help you for residency. And it's more of like a temporary visa. If you're coming here for long term, I usually recommend something that can work towards residency. Like, for example, like a student visa. Some people will get the student visa and not show up to class. They just pay for it, pay off the institution, and never go to class. So there's no attendance record or anything. That can screw you in the future. I always suggest that you be honest and actually take a course, whether it's 6 months or a year. You can get a student visa for that long, depending on the course. And you can learn something. Usually the best thing to learn is Spanish if you don't speak it. Retirement visa, those are becoming more popular because there's a more of a retirement community coming down here, which is awesome. I think it's great because the people that are coming on retirement visa are obviously older. They're coming here not because they're looking to party and be crazy out here. They're coming to establish a life and live out hopefully their best years of their life. So I love that. I love that people are coming down here with the retirement visa. The next thing on the list is the real estate investor visa. This one I've dealt with because I sell real estate here. I also have the Medellín Masterclass. A lot of the students have bought real estate and have gone through the process of getting their real estate investor visa or their migrant visa. You should be buying the property first and then you apply for the visa. That's the typical process. So in order to qualify for the real estate investor visa, you have to cover it's about $120,000 in Colombia. So I always tell people that you want to purchase a property over $120,000, usually about 150 or more, because the real estate investor visa is usually for 3 years, and then you're going to have to renew. And if you renew, you're going to have to meet the minimum requirement 3 years out. So you've got to be aware that there's going to be inflation and the minimum requirement is going to be more. So you want to make sure that you cover that with your initial investment. So let's say you buy a property for $150,000, then you're pretty much covered for the next few years. And then after 4 years, you can apply for residency. Either 4 or 5 years, you can apply for residency. So you want to make sure that you're covered with your investment and obviously do the entire process correctly with a professional like myself and a lawyer that will help you do the visa part. To get the business visa, minimum investment $34,000 to $32,000. For example, I know a guy down here that manages a bunch of hotels and he sells each suite as an investment in the business. And they cost about $50,000 to $70,000. So let's say you don't have 120 or more to invest in into a property here, but you might have $50,000 or $70,000 to invest in a business, and you actually want to invest in a business that gives you an ROI and that you can sell in the future too because it's an asset, might be the best way. If you're interested in that, you can email me at medellinbuzzandrew@gmail.com and I can give you that information. Okay, so that's a business visa. Marriage or domestic partnership visas, probably the easiest visa to get. Connecting with people and meeting like-minded people, meeting locals, etc., that you get along with, that you create meaningful relationships, friendships, maybe even fall in love in the future. That type of stuff is sometimes what holds people back from living here full time. I have seen it a few times where people come down here, they do everything right? You know, they've gotten their apartment, etc., but they're just not integrating. The best tip that I can give you is this. Go to the internet and type in MDE community website. You click on join a community here and look at all these. These are all WhatsApp channels. All you got to do is click on one that resonates with you. Let's say you like to cook and you want to hang out with other people that cook. You sign up for the cooking club and it's free. Let's go. And they ask you a few questions and then you have access to the WhatsApp group and then you start meeting people and doing stuff. That's how easy it is. But you've got to be diligent about this. It's not like, oh, just join and then just read messages and never interact. You want to be active. This is the best website for this because it's not just expats or tourists on these. It's both. It's local Colombians that are part of these groups and other foreigners. You've got to interact with people. You've got to go to the meetups. You've got to push yourself out of the comfort zone and meet people. MDE community and the Facebook groups is how I've built a lot of my friendships out here and how I've met a lot of people. When it came to dating and all that stuff, is just living my life. I play basketball on competitive teams. I go to the farmer's market every Sunday. I do board game night with new people and old friends on a consistent basis. I sell real estate, so I'm meeting other real estate agents that are both male and female, and we become friends because we're doing the same thing. That's the great thing about Colombians is that they're kind of cliquey. So when you have something in common, like you do something that they do as well, it becomes like your instant best friends. It's like, oh, we've got something in common. This is what we're going to hang on to. Let's go have a beer afterwards. Like literally, you go have a beer after everything. I play basketball with my team, and after that, we're drinking beers with the other team. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody loves everybody. That's the beautiful thing about this culture is that once you get in it, that's how you stay in it and you grow your own tribe, your own community. But it means that for some people, you have to step out of your comfort zone because maybe you weren't even doing that in your home country. Think about it. Succeed with your happy life in Medellin, Colombia. Now, how do you succeed here? Well, by investing, hiring locals. Even if you're retired, you can be sharing the wealth, giving back in that form to the locals and the community here, taking trips out of town, going to small towns, discovering the country, going to different cities. You can get anywhere here, and it's pretty cheap to fly anywhere. Waking up every day happy. That's something that happens I wrote that down because it's something that I feel every single day. My life here is awesome. There's not one day where I feel like, man, I don't want to get out of bed and do what I'm going to do today. It did happen in the beginning. When I got deported from the United States to Colombia, I had many days where I was like, shit, I don't want to wake up and go to this goddamn call center, work for 8 hours for $4 an hour. Or I don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and give a 6 a.m. class, English class right now, after being hungover on the weekend or whatever. Like, I've had those moments. But now I've designed my life where I'm super happy. And now it's gotten even better that I have a baby. Waking up every day to see him and to help raise him is like the greatest thing that could have happened to me. So my life is even better now. I think that's how you feel successful down here. It's not by having a ton of money, becoming a multimillionaire. I don't care about all that. I want to be able to have every day that I wake up, look forward to it, and be happy. And that's really why I live in Medellin. Otherwise, I wouldn't live in this city because I could live in any other city I wanted to, perhaps any city in South America if I wanted to. But I decided to live here, and this is my home, and I will probably die here, even though I would love to visit and maybe live, part-time in other countries. This is the country and the city where I want to be for a very, very long time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. Again, this is just a small portion of what the Medellin Masterclass is. If you're interested in it, we have a free webinar where we go. It's about an hour. It's over an hour webinar where we go over in detail some of these things, and in detail about the Medellin Masterclass, which is obviously a lot larger than what we just went through right here. The link is in the description to the free webinar. You click on that, you take the webinar, and it's completely free. And you learn whatever you need to learn from it. Take whatever you need to take from it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to watch some more informative videos on living in Medellin, make sure to click on this playlist right here.